Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm your co-host, Andrew Lazaga, here with Dubside.
And you're listening to the Dubcast with Dubside.
So, Dubside, I saw an interesting documentary the other day called The Last Ice.
Yeah, I had a look at that myself.
I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, it's the whole question of how climate change switches people's situation. In general, I often hear the theme, well, the Greenlanders are very adaptable, and they'll just figure out what to do. If this opens up the Northwest Passage, and that provides possibilities. So you have that maybe in the general optimistic sense, but in the day-to-day sense, if you've made your livelihood running a dog sled and all the snow melts and you don't have any snow anymore, that's a really bad situation,
Yeah.
So it kind of goes both ways.
Let me give a description of the film that's written on their website. And this is The Last Ice, which was published in 2020. As the sea ice between Canada and Greenland melts, the outside world sees unprecedented opportunity. Oil and gas deposits, faster shipping routes, tourism, and fishing all provide financial incentive to exploit the newly opened waters. But for more than 100,000 Inuit who live in the Arctic, on and around the frozen ocean, an entire way of life is at stake. Development here threatens to upset the balance between their communities, land and wildlife, leaving the future of the region and their culture increasingly uncertain. Directed by Scott Ressler and executive produced by Dr. Enrik Sala, National Geographic Explorer in Residence and founder of National Geographic Pristine Seas. The Last Ice tells the story of Inuit communities fighting to protect the rapidly disappearing Arctic that has been their home for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
So this features a hunter named Alakatsiak Perry, who is actually, they say he's an Inuk musician and is a great-great-great-grandson of Robert Perry, who is known as the first person to reach the North Pole in 1909.
Mm-hmm.
So what'd you think of the film overall?
No, it presented the issues very nicely, and it's very nice photography, etc. The connection between the Inuit in Canada and in Greenland is getting more and more developed. They've had that ICC, was it Inuit Circumpolar Council for many years now,
Oh,
a couple
yeah.
of decades. So they where the Alaskan Inuit and Canadian Inuit and Greenland all they'll meet together to discuss common issues. But I can see with the new airports Greenland is getting ready to open up, and the flights they'll have directly from Canada, it'll facilitate the connection even more so.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through my old magazines from the past 20 years since I've been going to Greenland. Like the in-flight magazine Suluk, it's called. They give out on Air Greenland, and I've kept old issues. So it's not an exhaustive supply because it's only once a year. But looking back through and reading these ones, the magazine was 10 years ago. It talks about the oil exploration, and they're all optimistic about they're going to find lots of minerals and oil, and that it said in 10 years there'll be oil, the minerals will be mining will be Greenland's major export for trade. Well, that was 10 years ago. Well, it hasn't happened.
No.
It's still mostly seafood, and they're working on tourism, and so projections don't always pan out the way they're supposed to be, and they're mining. I believe that major oil exploration has been on hold for now, I think.
Oh, yeah.
As far as I know. Yeah. But I was at the Greenland office in the Danish embassy in Washington D.C. again recently, and I got a copy of this publication. It's a thin book, but it's very nice, really photographs, color pictures, and everything. It's called Greenland in the World. It's Greenland's foreign, security, and defense policy. So this is the policy for security and defense and foreign policy for the coming it's 2024 to 2033 on Arctic strategy. And it says their main point, which is comes out sounding nice in English. It's they say nothing about us without us. In other words, all the times in the past where, internationally, you talk to Denmark and that covers it. That's kind of, the Greenland's like, no, we're at the table. This is our country now. You got to talk to us. It has anything to do with us. You got to involve us.
Yeah, makes
sense. Which is similar to what Kenneth Hughes said in his interview about the scientists used to come and do all these studies about climate change and then leave. and Greenland started saying, "Hey, you tell us, what you're doing here, and we've got scientists here, and let's collaborate." And then, they started working that way. So that's for everybody coming to Greenland for any whether it's security or defense or mining, all that stuff. Greenland says, "Yeah, nothing about us without us."
Well, it sounds like the Arctic will undergo a lot of development, or you could say exploitation, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, well, I'm as I've said before, I'm very keen to see how the Inuit deal with this situation.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of other examples of things that went really bad and things that went really good, and I mean, it's a change either way. But yeah, if you think of, you could almost compare it to the Middle East before oil.
Mm-hmm.
A country like Saudi Arabia and places, it was a bunch of camels, and I mean, not to stereotype too negatively, but that the influx of oil money changed the entire picture.
Yeah.
A country like Kuwait, nobody really has to work. Everybody gets subsidized. They're just flowing with money. They got money coming out the poorest things.
Yeah.
So if Greenland has ice, which is pure water, if the water becomes an issue in the future, you imagine Greenland with a total influx of money, how much that changes things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be all bad or all good, but it's definitely going to be changing things dramatically. And we seem to be on the precipice of some kind of change for the whole Arctic region.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, if any of you are interested in watching this film, it's streaming on Disney Plus, and it's beautifully filmed. Great footage of Arctic wildlife, including narwhal and seal hunting. I recommend it. So, this is the last time I'll be talking to you before your big trip to Qajaq in Kalaallit Nunaat. So, what is it you're looking forward to the most?
Well, I've been getting all my audio equipment together. I was just out today just to practice, running on my bicycle with all this stuff strapped to me, and then pull out microphones and run cables and stuff, and I'm trying to make all the connections and everything.
Cool.
And see that it all works. So I'm very anxious to see a lot of people and interview people I haven't seen in a long time. But I'm also the first night I'm going to get there in Naneruaq before I get to Qajaq. I have to spend a night in Naneruaq, and I got a hotel room, and I'm going to get up in the morning and hike up to the top of the mountain next to the big hillside next to the airport, and put out my microphones and just record the ambience. So
yeah,
kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, cool.
And like too many years, like I probably won't even get in the water. I won't get in a kayak. It's like been there, done that.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound too jaded, but somebody wants me to participate in a race or something like that, and has a kayak for me, I'll do that. But I'm not even bringing any
dry suit.
Yeah. I got my bags full of audio equipment. So
yeah, that's great. Now, what do you know about the Kayak Man of the Year?
The Kayak is the title, and there's a Kayak Man and Kayak Woman of the Year.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen who's won it in the past couple of years.
Okay.
But I'd be curious to find that out. And when I talked to Maligiak, he'd been involved in training some people, but he hadn't really participated directly in the Nuke Club. Since he's living in Nuke now.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm very curious to see. There were some promising people, and a lot of times you see these promising people, and then years later they stopped kayaking. So it'll be a whole new situation. So I'm very curious to see who's doing
of
what.
course, Maligiak was famous for winning that prize several times over. Do you know if anybody has ever beat that record? Or
No, they have not. I think there was somebody's gotten it three or four times, maybe. I think it's the highest. But he's got 9, I think, at least 9 titles. So yeah, that's the most.
Wow. Talking about training for this event, how do the Inuit train for this?
Oh well, Maligiak, the serious competitors, yeah, they're even before the ice is melted and they can get in the water. They're doing jogging or working out in the gym. They're doing the whole cardiovascular routine starting in January, February. If you're really a serious competitor, they'll be out running and stuff. You can do skiing in the wintertime. Yeah, they're doing all that.
What about the rolling part of it?
Yeah, well, when it gets warm enough, they'll start rolling. I imagine in Nuuk has the indoor pool in Greenland, so they probably work on that. Although I would think like any pool in this country, they're doing the regular swimming stuff
Right.
Even though it's a pool in Greenland, they have regular swimming hours. They probably have special times to put kayaks in there.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Boy, that'd be interesting to see.
yeah.
All right. Well, best wishes on your trip. And I'm really excited for you
Thanks.
and happy to see that we were all able to help you get there with our
Yeah.
combined
Well, I
effort.
certainly appreciate that.
It's wonderful that you'll be reconnecting with old friends and sharing these experiences through this podcast. And I'm excited to hear the stories you'll be bringing back.
Yeah.
Have an incredible time and safe travels.
All right. Thanks.
So, this episode, number 58, is all about how to watch the kayak rolling competition with a sophisticated eye, about how to
Yeah.
look for all the subtle signs only an experienced judge would notice. Another thing, K&R Greenland News will probably be following the competition. So for those of you who are interested, check out their YouTube channel, and maybe you'll be able to catch a glimpse of Dubside there.
Yeah, well, I'm not known for photo bombing, but yeah, you might see me in the background
No,
somewhere.
you got to try to get yourself on TV.
Well,
Go look out for the camera crew.
all right. In Qajaq one year, this was 2014, but when James Mankey was there and James Roberts were there, and we're on the dock hanging out, and the competition was going on, and somebody says, "Hey, look! It's the Google Map camera thing, the ball with the 10 cameras on it going down the street." And so a bunch of people start running like idiots after it, like thinking they can get on the Google thing. I'm just sitting there like, what's the problem? But yeah, it was in Qajaq where I'm going to go this time. Was the Google camera. So
wow, that's cool. You can be immortalized with your face blurred out.
yeah, that's what I hear they do. They blot out the faces. Yeah.
Welcome to the Dubcast with Dubside. This is Dubcast number 58. Competition kayak rolling for spectators. And from an earlier period of Greenland's contemporary music history, I've got a band that was called Naneruaq and one of their songs. Well, I know this is an audio format, and I will try to describe things as best I can, but I'm going to be referring to a couple of videos, and I think Andrew can have a link posted to them, so if you're curious, you can actually get a visual on what I'm talking about. We will look at things from the spectator's point of view. And I'll use an analogy here. If you're watching a basketball game for the first time and you've never seen anything like that before, it looks like some people are throwing a ball around, bouncing it on the floor, and tossing it at these hoops on the end of the area, and it just goes back and forth for, half an hour or something like that. If you have a bit more familiarity with basketball and maybe have played it a little bit yourself and know the basic rules, you can appreciate a bit more of the game and that there are different ways to take a shot. There are defense and offensive maneuvers. There's fouls and reasons for getting a foul call and foul shots, and the different layups and hook shots and jump shots and fadeaways and things like that. And then on a more advanced level, if you are familiar with professional basketball teams and actual players and their history and statistics and things, it gives you a whole new level of appreciation for the game. So let's take that same sort of classification and apply it to competition rolling. And I'm specifically talking about Greenland rolling competition. There are other ways to make a contest out of rolling a kayak, but this is what was started in 1987 in Greenland and has spread to other places since then. I'll refer to now a video entitled Greenland National Kayaking Championships, which can be found online. And this is from 2006. And this is what it looks like to see a rolling competition. So on the initial level, it's just a guy in a kayak in the water, and he's going upside down and coming back up. And then he stops in between, and they say something else, and he does it again, and it just goes on and on and on. And eventually he might just do it with just his hands after doing it with the paddle, but that's about what it is. Just a lot of going upside down and coming back up. Or could be a woman, or it could be a man, but they tip over, they come back up. That's it, really. You can see how that's the equivalent of they keep throwing this basketball around, and sometimes it goes in the basket, and sometimes it doesn't, and that's it, really. Well, to take it a little further into the details, there is a list of rolls, prescribed maneuvers, that each competitor must go through in order. Each of these different ways to roll a kayak has its own name, and in that video I just mentioned, you can see I have the name printed along the bottom of the screen, and you can hear the judge calling it out. That was footage I shot in Greenland, and I had a microphone on the judge so you can hear quite clearly his Greenlandic pronunciation of all the names of the rolls. Now, if you ever tried rolling yourself, watching that, you can see that there are rolls that end on the front deck, and there are rolls that end up on the back deck, and there are what's called sculling rolls, where you're sliding the paddle back and forth rapidly and bringing the kayak around that way. And generally, the ones where you end laying on the back deck are somewhat easier than the ones where you end up laying on the forward deck. So if a person does a lot of the forward-ending ones, that's a little bit more impressive. And these sculling ones are usually considered even harder than the first two categories. And the 35 rolls on the list there's a general order to them, where you have some sculling maneuvers first, where you're just sculling, you're not rolling all the way around. Then you start with a standard roll in a bunch of different ways, some forward, some backwards, goes through those. And then there's some sculling rolls thrown in there that are a little harder. Then you get to speed rolls, as many as you can do in 10 seconds on both sides. There's a roll with a float on the back of the kayak, which makes it harder. Then you put the paddle down and you roll with the Norsok, the throwing stick, and then just a hand in 3 different ways. And then with the closed fist, and then with a brick, and then with just your elbow, then with just your arms held against your chest, known as the straitjacket roll. And then there's a maneuver where you paddle upside down as far as you can, and then the walrus pull where you're pulled sideways. And the rules state that you have 30 minutes to do as many as you can in the full list of 35. And you have to do them in order, and you can get a second try if you miss it on the first time. And after the second try, you have to go on. Each maneuver is done on both sides, scored separately. Well, that 2006 video in Greenland, I actually spliced it together so there's different people rolling. It's just a way to show all the different rolls in order. And it's a lot shorter than the full half an hour because I cut out the slow parts. Well, let's say you're at a rolling competition watching, and a new person comes up to start their routine. How do you know if they're any good or not? Well, I'll give you some tips so you can know when to save your camera batteries or go out and get some lunch or not have to look at the whole thing all the way through. So here's what I'm looking at when I see somebody starting out. If they hesitate before each roll, really taking their time to set up, that's an indication that they're not a top-level competitor. The second maneuver on the list is the chest scull, pashlushinuk, where you lay face down into the water and scull sideways. If they skip that, that means they probably don't have any forward-ending rolls, and they're not going to get a really high score. And the first 6 or so rolls on the list, if they miss it the first time and the judge asks if they want to try it again, that's not a good sign. If they're going through the maneuvers quite quickly and quite smoothly, and they're not waiting to hear the judge tell them what the next maneuver is, that's the mark of a top competitor. Each roll on the competition list has a point value, and the total of the points of the rolls that you've succeeded in doing is your overall top score. And the top guys, for many years, the best scores are between 250 to 300 points, in that range there. The simple standard roll is worth 2 points, and the hardest one on the list, the straightjacket roll, is worth 11 points on each side. And in between that, you've got a storm roll, reverse sweep rolls are 3 points. If you put the paddle behind your neck and go forward or backwards, that's 4 points. Then the roll number 7 and 8 on the list, which is the spine roll and the behind the back roll, are at 3 points each. Yet those are considered a bit harder than the behind the neck roll, even though they're a point less. Doesn't always follow the logic of the difficulty, but that's the way it is. So in competition, if I see somebody go through the first 6 and get them all okay, and then skip the spine roll and the behind the back roll, I know they're not the top level competitor, because those are more difficult rolls. They'll go to the behind the neck and the shotgun rolls. The top guys don't skip anything. Now, to get the most out of watching a rolling competition, we will add in the identities of the people, the competitors. And in Greenland, we have people like Pavia Tobiasson, Christian Josefsson, of course, Naneruaq Padilla, and Naneruaq Davidson. I think he had the top record for quite some time, which was just under 300 points. So in knowing these things, here's an example of what the competition looks like. It's 2009, and it is in Ilulissat, Greenland, up north. So I'm watching Naneruaq compete. And towards the end of the list, so you've got the hand rolls, and then the fist roll, brick roll, elbow roll, straightjacket roll, paddling upside down, walrus pull. And so at the time, people hadn't gotten fully doing the forward-ending brick and fist rolls. So I think Naneruaq, he hits the layback, hand, fist, brick, and then it's time for the elbow roll. So he does the elbow roll on one side. And I know he may skip the straightjacket roll. That one's very difficult. He hasn't been hitting that one on a regular basis. And then he can paddle upside down a good distance. And then the walrus pull, he may opt out of that or might do it, depending. So he does the elbow roll on one side. He's got 22 minutes used up so far. He's got 8 minutes left. He gets out. He paddles to the side and says, "That's it, I'm done." And I was shocked. Like, wait, what happened there? He's got 8 minutes left. And yeah, if he doesn't feel like doing the walrus pull, okay, but I know he can do the elbow roll on both sides. I've seen him do it on both sides. So he's throwing away 10 points. What's up with that? So I asked him later what was going on. And I should note that it was Ilulissat with all the icebergs there. And it was rather cloudy that day. And there was a bit of a breeze. And he was competing with no gloves on. And he explained to me, after 22 minutes in that water, he had just gotten so chilled. It was painfully cold. And he just wanted to get off the water as fast as he could before full hypothermia set in. Probably a wise thing to do. And I didn't realize till later on, looking at the results. He may have also been aware of the fact that Naneruaq Davidson, who was competing that year, as well as Christian D. Josefsson, neither of them had been practicing really hard. And I guess Naneruaq probably didn't see what exactly their scores were, or wouldn't have known, but just knowing how much they'd been practicing, he got 265 even without doing that second elbow roll. And that was 50 points higher than either of the other guys. So he gets easily gold medal. He didn't need to do that second elbow roll. And it was not going to affect his overall standing in the totals to calculate the Kayak Man of the Year title, which he did win quite handily anyway. Tell you about another time. This also happened in Ilulissat. This was 2013. Came time for the rolling competition, and John Peterson gets in a kayak to roll. And this was something of a stir to me because I'd been going since 2004. I'd never seen him compete in rolling before. And I think he had maybe some back injury or something. He was very good on ropes, was one of the fastest racers, and he did the harpoon throwing. But by 2013, he'd been practicing, and it was impressive to see him in the water rolling. And he didn't get a super high score, but I was quite happy to see that he had made that effort there. He got less than 100 points, but in his age category, that was good enough for a gold medal. The first time a Greenlander cracked the 300-point mark was in 2018, when a relatively young guy named Ari Yusufsson did it. And you can see a video of that. I think it's under Ari J Roll Part 1. And there's a second part of it as well for the full half hour. And you can see on that how easy he makes it look, how smoothly he does the rolls. And he's obviously put a lot of time into practicing to compete on that level. Then at the very highest levels, this would be the Michael Jordan category, you could say. We have Jon David Jenssen from Norway. And you can see his Greenland competition in 2018. And that video is called Jon David Jenssen Roll Part 1 and Part 2. Jon David is Jon David, and Jenssen is spelled Jenssen. Now, in that video, you can see he goes through the whole list. I think he skipped the straitjacket roll because he didn't feel he could do that one, but everything else he hits, and he hits it quite smoothly and quite quickly. And in the speed rolling, he did 6 rolls. Of the 4 combinations, once or twice he did 6 rolls within 10 seconds, which is really impressive. The paddling upside down he did with, I think he's using freediving, hold your breath techniques to get extra distance. And so his score was 370 points, which was a record set then in 2018. Now, going back to the spectator's point of view, if there's anything that could add to this appeal, I think the fact that each competitor has half an hour to go through their routine, it gets maybe just a little boring. I mean, it's not as bad as a sport like, say, chess. Do you think they could ever make chess a real spectator sport? I don't think so. It's not the way they play it now. The tournaments each game takes more than an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I mean, that's just all they're doing is sitting there looking at a chessboard. Now, you can't really market that to giant crowds. Well, rolling isn't that far gone, but to cater to the short attention span that I think the internet has created for everyone, it might be helpful to address that angle of things. So I've been in Greenland and watching a competition, and you'll get somebody, it could be one of the younger competitors, but somebody, so they've got maybe 2 or 3 rolls, layback rolls, and you can see that's their ability. Maybe as far as a Norsok roll laying back, but that's all they've got. And so you'd figure with half an hour, they're going to be done in 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll get on with the next competitor, something exciting. But there's no penalty for taking your time. There's also no penalty for trying rolls that you don't make. So the guy's got no forward-ending rolls, but the judge will get to that one in the list, like a storm roll, they'll try it on the water, and they'll fail, and the judge has to officially say, do you want to try it again? And so the person will say, yeah, let me try it again, and they'll fail on that side. Then they'll say, do you want to try the other side? The person says, yes, I want to try the other side. They'll fail that one. It says, do you want to try it again? They'll fail that. And they'll keep on going through the list, failure, 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 failure. There's no penalty for that. And I guess they're figuring, maybe the wind will blow, or maybe I'll get really lucky. I saw a kid, he didn't even have a hand roll. And they got to the end of the list of the straightjacket roll, and he says, yes, I want to try the straightjacket roll. Now, come on, who are you fooling? Everyone here watching you knows you're not going to make that roll, and you're just wasting our time. Well, I don't make the rules of the competition, and I try to make it a practice not to tell the Greenlanders what they should or should not do. But when rolling competitions are held outside of Greenland, then I can have a little more sway. When I was practicing very hard and competing very hard in rolling, I had the list memorized, and I had the rolls flowing together one after the other. And I found that it can be done, the full list, you can get through that, especially if you're not doing the walrus pull, which they often don't do outside of Greenland. You can finish that list in 15 minutes without really sweating it. And so I prevailed upon, along with some of the other people organizing it, to change the rule for a Danish competition. This is the Danish Kayak Federation, and this is in 2015. We decreed that the length of time to do each person's routine would be 15 minutes. And some of the competitors were grumbling about that, said they couldn't handle that kind of time pressure. But the top guys all just stepped up their game. And to give you an idea of how rolling competition could be made more exciting and more appealing, I took video footage of that 2015 Danish Kayak Championship rolling competition, and I edited it to where it looks like they're all competing simultaneously with the same time clock, and I have the scores on screen so you can see exactly who's leading and who's behind. Then I put in my best impersonation of a sports announcer trying to build up the drama. And this is to be found under the title 2015 Danish National Rolling Competition Part 2. And there's Jon David Jenssen is in that video competing there. This is before he set a record in Greenland. And there's a guy, David Techner, who's the top guy in Denmark at the time, and two other people. And you will notice, which I think proves my point, that none of them ran out of time. They all completed the rolling within the 15 minutes, some with 2.5 minutes of extra time left over. And as you can see on that video, none of them are waiting for the judge to call out the roll. They've all either got it memorized or have a list on their deck that they can look at to see what's next. But when you do that, you have to keep concentrating mentally, because as you'll see in that video, mental errors can cost you in the end, not just physical errors. Besides changing the length of time each competitor has, there are several other ideas for tinkering with the rules a little bit to quote-unquote improve the competition. Now, once you open the door to that idea, everybody's got their own pet concept of what will make things improved. And I put generally the suggestions into two categories. There's the one category is what would actually make the sport more appealing to spectators or improve the overall safety of the sport. The second category is from an individual who's suggesting it. What this will make it easier for me to get a higher score. It's a self-centered idea based on their skills. And that second category I don't pay that much attention to. But more importantly than that, if you have a suggestion, the way to make that suggestion is to hold your own competition and go by your own rules. And if that's really something significant, other people will notice and might adjust their competitions. But that's the way to implement something, not to tell other people what they should or shouldn't do. Well, I was happy to find out that outside of Greenland, interest in holding rolling competitions is still there. And last year, 2023, they had a Swedish championship in Stockholm, and Jon David Jenssen from Norway attended. And looking there, there's video footage of it. It's called Swedish Championship Kayak Rolling Men's Elite Day 2 is the video I was looking at. Unfortunately, this one looks like it was shot on a stationary camera with a wide-angle lens, so there's no close-up zoom-in shots. But it has the complete half-hour routines of the top guys there. So you can see Jon David Jenssen competing. And interestingly, knowing what he can do, having seen him in Norway and in Greenland, I watched that performance, this just from him rolling this past fall, and I could see he was missing a couple things that he was usually nailing. So forward hand rolls or forward fist rolls, those are the ones that get a little rusty sometimes, and so he's missing things. And I think as it shows there's another guy I haven't met yet, David Teng, who beats him by just a few points. And they had David Teng at 370, I think, which actually matches Jon David's score in Greenland from several years before that. I was adding it up from my watching it. I had him at 372, but somewhere in there. So when you get into this fine points level, then you have to take into account the slight differences in how they run things. So they're not doing the walrus pull in Sweden, as they often don't do outside of Greenland. And they're using the old rules for paddling upside down scoring, which is a point for the first 3 meters and a point for every 2 meters after that. Whereas in Greenland, last several years, they've been doing it a point per meter. So it sort of changes the overall scoring if you can compare one situation to another. Another little detail was that Danish competition that I mentioned on the video of the 4 guys competing before, that the particular judge there, Per Holsen, he does it where you only do speed rolls on one side. So you do speed storm rolls and speed layback rolls. But in Greenland, you do both sides. So that changes the computations a little bit. Now, the word is from Greenland that they are going to make some changes in the rules for both the ropes and the rolling. And I don't know what those changes are yet, but when I get to Greenland, I'll find out exactly. And they haven't officially changed the ropes or rolling rules in at least 10 years. I think it was 2007 or 8. There was complaints that they were changing them too much. They were making little adjustments, so they stopped for quite some time now. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, they've made little adjustments in how they score things once in a while, but at major changes, we haven't seen those in a long time. There is another rolling event in Greenland besides the individual rolling, and this is team rolling. You have 3 people on a team, and they all get in the water together, and they go through the list, and all 3 kayaks have to make the roll for the team to get credit. I don't seem to recall any full-fledged team rolling competition outside of Greenland. And at really slow years in Greenland, they may even skip that if there's not more than one team. But it's often 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams in Greenland. And watching, it's usually pretty easy to tell who's the weakest person on the team, because the others are giving them hints and trying to coach them along. And it's considered poor form to get into some real coaching and instruction in the middle of a competition. You're supposed to just do what you can do. And I have seen some really tight teams. I think Nuuk one time had their top 3 guys very tight together, rolling with precision and just doing the stuff they all 3 of them could do. When they get to the end of the list with paddling upside down and the walrus pull, it depends how together the judging staff is. Sometimes they'll just say, okay, go one at a time, and then we'll just calculate from there. But other times they'll say, okay, all 3, everybody upside down and paddle together. And I have actually seen, I think one time, that the team was ready to do the walrus pull, all three of them. And they ran it simultaneously with 3 lengths of rope and 15 guys to pull, 5 per kayak. And I can't remember if they all 3 made it. They probably didn't. Now, if you want to get a really top team together and really make an impression, I'm pretty sure this has never occurred, but imagine all 3 guys or women on the team setting up for the straitjacket roll and all 3 of them coming up on cue together. In the relatively small community of Greenland rolling kayak fanatics, that would be a video that would go viral. Thinking about my basketball analogy, when you have professional sports with a big audience, you have sponsors and advertising. So all around the basketball court or around the football field or in the baseball stadium, you have logos and banners and lots of commercial messages. Kayak USA has been very cautious about over-commercialization, but in Greenland, they have no problem with that. And I'll typically see that somebody will get some money from somewhere. There's the local food market, Brusen it's called. They'll put up a banner. And here and there over the years, the shipping company Royal Arctic Line or Air Greenland have been involved. One of the videos I referred to earlier, the one called Greenland National Kayaking Championships Rolling Competition, which is the footage I shot in 2006, you can see one of the guys rolling. I think it first comes up during the King Up Apumajigut reverse sweep roll. That's Ari Yusufson in a black kayak. And when he goes over, you can see on the bottom of the kayak, it says Leibreth. And that's the last name of a couple people that come to the competition. I think that kayak belonged to Pavia Luberth. We would say Leibreth, but Luberth is how they pronounce it. And a really good rolling kayak gets handed around to different competitors. Somebody will borrow somebody else's kayak if it's a really good one for rolling. So it occurs to me that especially during a rolling competition, the prime location for selling advertising space is the bottom of a kayak. Everybody is going to be staring at that throughout somebody's entire routine. Could be a source of potential support money, although we'd have to balance that out with the getting away from the traditional look of a skin-on-frame kayak. We have no evidence that I know of that seal hunters wrote things on the bottom of their kayaks. Actually, I once had a kayak that said Dubside on the bottom. And this was made for me by Sterling Donaldson of Sterling Kayaks. It was an ice cap. But he put it in, knowing how much I like the color black, he made it like subdued, sort of in just the right reflection of light. You could see a faded Dubside within the black color. What happened to that kayak is a whole nother story I'll have to tell you some other time. All right, before we get into the music segment, here's one last spectator tip. If you're taking pictures of a rolling competition, a really good competitor will do the rolls very slowly and smoothly, and there's not a whole lot of splash going on, except for speed rolling. When they get to the speed rolling, that's when you want to take pictures, set your camera for as fast, rapid fire, and then shoot the speed rolling. And then the stills, you get that water dripping off of them as they come spinning around, which you don't get during the other rolls because they're coming up slowly and smoothly. So speed rolling, rapid fire shots, you get some good pictures. And the only other tip I have for the moment is if you're watching rolling in Greenland, you want to bundle up or have some extra layers to put on because it can get kind of chilly even on a sunny day watching rolling for half an hour or more. If you're in other places, well, then maybe you have the luxury of a very warm, sunny day. If you recall a few episodes back, we met Naneruaq Corneliusson, the granddaughter of the great kayak builder and designer Emanuel Corneliusson. And I'm hoping to track down Naneruaq when I get to Nuuk this summer and see if I can interview her, as I wanted to at Delmarva, but she didn't have time. So she told me about her favorite group. They were known as Naneruaq, Naneruaq. They put out several popular CDs going back to the middle 1990s, actually. And they had a CD called Akusinek, that would be The Road. And there's a song off of that called Sila Persakak, which translates to a blizzard. So my version of that song goes like this. Sila Persakak, asidan arası, hoşlaştı tahayyüşlünü. Cavalier sepultit, sekineş dönüeva, hoşlaştı kamaleştünü. Kongo yoştı esenleri, eriyor mektun esinleri, ilumata, asigaka, asavagi. Ekileşler git, gizat madrugadogu, tanıya pisat septigu. Inat nişlatak, kanakunilaştugu, asişlu singulaşluni. Segume casa inunere, susu seu toşdu tamniga, juligaku, işlu hamnik, asavagi. Asidan arası hak, hoşlaştı tahayyüşlüne. Cavalier sepultit, sekineş dönüeva, hoşlaştı kamaleşlüne. Kongo yoştı esenleri, sinleri, ilumata, asigaku, asavagi. Song is called Sila Persakak. And the rough translation given, it's about walking in a heavy blizzard and thinking about someone that you love in general. So that was originally done on a CD entitled Akusinek, and you can order that CD from atlanticmusic.gl, which is how I got mine just recently, since I haven't been in Greenland lately to buy CDs, but you can order them from Atlantic Music. And I'd like to thank Naneruaq for turning me on to this band, Naneruaq. Well, by the time you hear this, it may be close to the middle of July 2024, which means, if all goes well, I will be in Greenland. And I'd like to thank once again all the people who contributed to the GoFundMe effort to give me enough money to pay to go there. And I do hope to get a lot of interesting interviews with a lot of people I need to catch up with. Quite some time ago, I mentioned doing an index of all the previous Dubcasts, and I've been doing that. I've been updating it, including all the special guest episodes. And next time, in episode 59, we will use that index to look up the subject of skin-on-frame design, and we'll see what everybody had to say throughout the entire history of the Dubcast. So, be ready for that.